Okay. I'm going to try to make a post reading a short story that I wrote that is part of my new book, Growing Up 80's. If you want to read the back blurb, all right, there you go. Anyway, I'm going to try to read this story, and it's my first attempt, so I really highly doubt I'm going to make it through in the first one, and it will probably get deleted. But we're going to give her a shot anyway, okay? All right, this is about the hill. The hill. The hill I lived on in Des Moines, I grew up on, was like a U. And we lived on the right side of one of the U's. So anyway, there we go. Most of the time, our hill was just a pain in the ass. Creston Avenue cut straight through from Indianola Avenue to Union Street, straight from the get and go of Indianola on one end, carving through our neighborhood, and dropping down past Mary Berry's place and leveling off where the creek slithered under the road. Our house sat dead center, right in the middle of the incline. It was kind of like a place that was made, you had to walk uphill no matter which direction you were going. Grocery store, uphill. School, uphill. Running away from home, still uphill. It was like God had personally designed the terrain to punish kids in cheap sneakers. Most days when it snowed, it only made things worse. Side streets like ours were at the bottom of the plow priority list. You'd wake up in a foot of snow and frozen silence, look out the window, and just know nobody was coming to get you out unless you had chains, a snowmobile, or the devil himself pushing your car. Sometimes we'd all just sit and wait. Half the block stuck at the bottom, the other half stranded at the top, everyone praying the plow guy wasn't drunk or on vacation. But once or twice a year, when the snow was just right, not too fluffy, not too icy, but that perfect, crunchy, packable kind, that stupid hill became magic. That's when every kid in the neighborhood would show up with whatever passed for a sled, real sleds, trash can lids, pieces of cardboard, laundry baskets with broken handles. We were poor, but we were resourceful. I want to apologize. I should have had this ready on Kindle, but what are you going to do? The goal wasn't just to sled. The goal was to conquer, to start out at the top, up by Mary Nellis, tear down the hill like a screaming maniac, and somehow ride that glorious momentum all the way up the other side to Union Street. That was the holy grail. That was sledding immortality. And if you wanted a real shot at it, you needed more than guts. You needed gear. Not garbage bags or wobbly plastic discs. You needed a rail sled, one with metal runners, waxed to a razor's edge with the stub of an old candle. One you could steer like a fighter pilot dodging curbs and trash cans. And on one perfect day, I had just that. It might have been the oldest sled in America. I was pretty sure that one of the founding fathers carved it with a musket bayonet in the middle of Valley Forge. The screws holding it together looked hand-forged by a colonial blacksmith with poor eyesight and shaky hands. The rails were scratched up like they'd seen battle, and while it might have been painted once upon a time, now it was just the dull color of rust and regret. But it was a rail sled. In that moment, it was my Excalibur. I sat bundled on the porch, a lump of scars and snow pants, hunched over my sled like a pit crew greasing up a race car. I was rubbing an old candle stub along the runners with care and purpose, and this wasn't about sledding. This was about Lori Bierbauer. Lori was my sister's best friend, and that day, she was standing out front with everybody else, watching kids fly down Crescent Avenue, cheering or laughing when they crashed into trash cans or got flung into snowbanks. I wasn't going to fly down that hill. I was going to do something. I was going to scroll the... All right. The plan was simple. Start at the top by McNally's place. Stick to the left side of the road. When I reached her driveway, just one house up from ours, I would cut hard into it, jump over the sidewalk right in front of our yard. But instead of staying on the sidewalk, I'd stay low, fly behind the crowd of kids standing in front of our house, cut through the yard like a blur, and at the edge where the Lopez driveway met the street, I'd turn back onto Creston and use the angle and speed to shoot straight towards Union Street. It was the perfect trick. A surprise move. Fast, risky, flashy. It, it was, I was convinced it would impress everyone, especially Lori. I hoisted the sled and made my way up Creston the smart way, cutting through the snowy grass for better footing and each step crunching with purpose. The hill stretched behind me like a launch ramp, made just for that day, and the sky was low-hanging white that made everything feel brighter than it should. The world was quiet, except for the squeals of the other kids making their runs and the occasional thud of someone failing theirs. At the top, I took a deep breath and looked down. There she was, Lori Bierbauer, standing in front of our yard with her winter coat, boots dusted with snow, and a puffball hat that somehow didn't make her look as dumb as it did the rest of us. And she was looking right at me. No mounting, no help, no push. I grabbed the front of the sled like a javelin and took 3 big stomping steps forwards. 1, 2, 3, and launch. And for a second it worked. The runners caught the slope, the wax did its job, and screaming down Creston like a missile, there was a little wobble at first, but I leaned in, gritted my teeth, and I found my center. I was flying. The wind whistled past my ears, my scarf snapped behind me like a cape. This was it. Then came Merrick McNally's driveway, the entry point to my trick. I leaned left, the sled followed. The left runner popped cleanly onto the sidewalk. Perfect. But the right runner had other plans. It hit the exact worst possible spot. That nasty little drop where the curb ends and the driveway begins, right where the lip where the cement picks up again. The sled didn't like that. Suddenly it bucked up and twisted sideways, the runners catching air. In one smooth, horrifying motion, it spun perfectly, like a perfectly thrown football. Elegant and doomed. The sled was airborne, arcing off the side like it was trying to escape the situation entirely. I was not so lucky. Perfect pause. I launched straight up and out, arms flailing, hat flying, face frozen in betrayal. I soared like a rag doll shot out of a cannon, twisted midair and came crashing down. Not on a sidewalk, not on the street, but on the edge of the driveway. I skidded across a patch of icy grass like a curling stone and crumpled under one of our trees. A bent little heap of puffed up winter clothes and shattered pride. I laid there for a second, staring through the tree branches, trying to assess the damage. Arms still moved. Legs all accounted for. No sharp pain, no searing heat, no warm trickle that might suggest blood or pee or any other social death warrant. I hadn't shattered anything miraculously. My snowsuit, thick as a mattress and twice as stiff, must have taken the brunt of the hit. I started to sit up, brushing off chunks of ice and pride. I realized something even more surprising. I didn't really hurt. Maybe a bruise or two, sure, but nothing serious. And then I saw her. Lori was walking toward me, already bending down with that mix of concern and curiosity that was only made things worse and better at the same time. That's when the adrenaline wore off, and a new sensation kicked in. Woozy. Suddenly, my right elbow started throbbing, and for reasons that still remain a medical mystery, I developed a limp. So she helped me up, limping like a Civil War soldier, and guided me into the house. Inside, she helped me peel off my snowsuit, which felt way more intimate than it probably was. It wasn't intimate, guy. It was nice. I liked it, but it wasn't like that. Then we shared a couple of mugs of hot cocoa and watched the afternoon movie on whatever channel was showing something with cowboys or robots or both. The trick didn't work. I didn't become king of the hill. Nobody cheered, nobody gasped. I didn't fly to Union Street and become a sledding legend. But I got 30 quiet minutes with Lori Bierbauer in my living room, sipping cocoa while snow melted off our boots and steam rose from our mugs. And maybe that was worth it. Maybe that's why I still like snow days.